Yes, how's it going, lads? So the final whistle is pretty much just gone. It's finished. Tottenham 0, Chelsea Football Club 1. And I don't think anyone can have any complaints against Chelsea for this. In fact, if we had gone on to win 2-3-0, even the Tottenham fans couldn't argue with it, because particularly in that first half, we were completely dominant. Didn't create a whole host of chances. We weren't creating chances, shooting every second or third minute. But we dominated the game. We controlled everything in the midfield. The defence, apart from like a few minutes towards the end of the second half, the defence was just left completely under no pressure for the most part. The attacking play, iffy at times, good for the most part. Lots of positives to talk about here, so let's get into it. Edouard Mendy, 7 out of 10. He made a save, a very comfortable one in the first few minutes of the game. Didn't have to do anything else then pretty much for the entire first half. Second half, he was put under a bit more pressure. He had to catch a few crosses. His distribution was very good. And there was one very good save in particular from, I think, Lucas Moura from outside the box. Wasn't anything spectacular, but it wasn't a gimme either. He had to get down well to save it, put it out for the corner, which is enough for me to bump him up from a 6 to a 7. Reese James, 8 out of 10. Reese put in quite a few crosses in this game that, for the most part, people couldn't get on the end of, not because they were a bad cross, but just, inches off the pace. But I'm actually giving this 8 not for his attacking play, but mostly for his defensive play, because we decided to meet Tottenham high up in this game. Himself and Marcus Alonso were pushed fairly high up, meaning there's a lot of pressure on them to make a good tackle or else Tottenham will get in behind. And for the most part, on every single occasion, he made that tackle or he made that interception. He was a brick wall down the right side of our defence. And yeah, I'm gifting him an 8 for it. Cesar Azpilicueta, 7 out of 10. Dave didn't quite get forward as much as he did in our last game against Burnley. But his defensive duties, he did very well. He wasn't called into action too many times. He did pick up a kind of a silly yellow card. To be honest, I wasn't sure if it was a yellow card, but it was given all the same. He kind of obstructed Son. But all the same, apart from that, his defensive play was really good in this game. And it looks like he's fitting really well into the right side of our 3 centre-backs. Andreas Christensen, 7 out of 10. Christensen came on after about half an hour because Thiago Silva got injured. And I'll admit I was a bit nervous because, Christensen, not exactly my preferred centre-back. We didn't have Zuma on the bench because he's got a minor injury. But to be fair, Christensen came in and he did really well. One of the first things he did was pick up the ball and absolutely drive through the Tottenham midfield. He ended up nearly on the edge of their box, which was, kind of nice to watch. But apart from that, his defensive play was solid. He won quite a few aerial duels, something that normally Zuma is best at. But there was one interception in particular, a really important one on the edge of our box when I think Son was looking to get him behind. And the commentators didn't really, praise him much for it, kind of just get on with the game. I thought it was a really impressive interception with the outstretched leg. And yeah, it was kind of the pinnacle of a decent performance from him. Tony Rudiger, 8 out of 10. Rudiger is in the side because he's able to play the ball really well. And he did that in this game. There was quite a few passes that were just outrageous from him, switching the play or just getting it out wide or into the midfield, whatever. His passing was great, but his defensive play was what I'm giving him this good rating for, because he is often suspect defensively, and against a team like Tottenham, there's always a chance he'll get caught out. But no, not in this one. He made so many brilliant tackles, particularly in the first half when we just had Tottenham pinned in. A lot of that was, we were able to do it because Rudiger was meeting them high up and making these fantastic tackles. And yeah, a well-deserved 8 out of 10 for him today. Marcus Alonso, 6 out of 10. Just because I'm only giving him a 6 doesn't mean that I think he had a bad performance or anything compared to the rest of our defence. In fact, he actually pleasantly surprised me because, like I said last week or last time out, it's against the big boys that Alonso gets caught out. And he didn't in this game. His defensive play was actually quite solid. But having that good defensive play meant he sacrificed a bit of his forward momentum, and his crossing wasn't quite as on point as I would have liked. His overlapping runs didn't happen quite as much as I would have liked. His passing, though, particularly into the midfield, was still fairly reliable. He didn't mess up much, and I'm happy to give him a very safe 6. Coutinho, 9 out of 10. And yes, he scored the penalty that ultimately led to us winning this game. And he abandoned his usual stuttered hop, skip, jump penalty that hasn't exactly served him well this season. He abandoned it, just went with a normal penalty. He strode up to it, put it into the corner, probably took Lloris a little bit by surprise with that. Definitely took me by surprise, but a nice surprise. And apart from that, he absolutely ran the midfield. You know, I'm not going to give him a 9 out of 10 just because he scored a penalty. It was so much more from that than that from Jorginho in this game. His passing through the midfield and in around the midfield, spectacular. Won so many just intelligent fouls by just shifting his body around. You know, just keeping the pressure on Tottenham by maintaining possession well, getting it forward. His play was so much more positive. Always looking to get the ball forward rather than sideways, backwards. And yeah, he also made a few really good tackles, which isn't exactly Jorginho's thing. Normally he makes terrible tackles and, you know, could well earn himself 2 yellow cards a game. But no, not on this occasion. Defensively he was solid. He played his deep role really well. And he's my player of the match in this one. Mateo Kovacic, 6 out of 10. Kovacic in this game did a lot of good stuff, you know, starting out, and then he just kind of messed it up trying to finish it. He put his head down and dribbled through the midfield on multiple occasions, which I love to see from him, just driving at the opponent. But then after that, he'd misplace the pass or make the wrong decision. You know, there was one where he absolutely drove at Tottenham, ended up in the edge of the box. He had options either side. The better one was to just simple pass it to his left, give it to Timo Werner, who'd have a chance. And instead he just seemed to panic. He kind of toe poked the ball forward, having a shot himself. It went well wide. Not exactly his best moment there, but the build up to it was really good. And that type of stuff just happened a lot for Kovacic in this game, which is why I had to settle with giving him a 6. Mason Mount, 7 out of 10. Mount was his usual self in this game. He made himself busy closing the ball down, was always available for taking in the ball. Went at Tottenham, you know, picked good passes, made passes out wide very well. Had a couple shots himself, one in particular on his left foot that could have sealed the game, made it 2-0 with about 10-15 left, but Lloris pulled off a good save. The commentator decided to give him man of the match. I'm not sure if I agreed with that. I think that both Jorginho and Rudiger probably had a better match than Mount, but he was his usual reliable self, which is why he gets his usual reliable 7. Callum Hudson-Odoi, 5 out of 10. Hudson-Odoi didn't have a bad match, but by the own standards that he set for himself in the last few games, the last couple of months nearly, he didn't quite meet that. He was probably the straggler on the pitch in Chelsea colours, didn't quite threaten as much as he has recently, wasn't able to get in behind as much as he has been, didn't drive at the Tottenham defence as often as I would have liked. You know, he did have a couple of chances. There was one on his right foot that he put a couple yards wide. It was a bit of a half chance, I suppose. But on top of that, his crossing wasn't great. There were still good moments from Callum Hudson-Odoi in this. Don't get me wrong. He did quite a few nice things. But, you know, he just didn't seem to be himself in this one for the most part. He got subbed off around the hour mark for Christian Pulisic, who didn't have a great game himself. But, yeah, I'm sure this is just a bit of a blip for Callum. And in the next game, he'll be back to his usual self. Timo Werner, 7 out of 10. He didn't get on the score sheet himself, but he did win the penalty. I actually thought that he was going to take the penalty. He was definitely the main penalty taker under Lampard's regime towards the end. Not in this one. Back to Jorginho. Hey, he scored. Not going to complain about that. I don't care who scores, just that we score. But even though he didn't get on the score sheet, Timo's game overall here was good. It was worthy of credit because he made life difficult for Tottenham. You know, he was the one that was sprinting around in the front line, really trying to close them down, put pressure on the defence, force them into silly mistakes. He did it really well in the first half. Looked like he maybe got a bit tired in the second half. I was actually a bit surprised that we didn't maybe take him off for Giroud, not just for the fresh legs, but also for the height, because, you know, inevitably pressure came in the last few minutes from Tottenham. Would have been nice to have Giroud in the box to maybe head things clear. Didn't need him in the end, but, you know, at the time, this is kind of what I was thinking. No, Werner stayed on, and to his credit, whatever he had left in the tank, he spent it trying to close them down. And there were a couple of half chances that fell his way in this one. One in particular, it looked like he might be in. Serge Aurier managed to make a brilliant recovery tackle to put the ball out for a corner. And that's just kind of the way things are going for Werner at the moment. But if he keeps up this level of performance, the goal will come. Looking to a game against Tottenham, away against Tottenham, maybe not, well, it would have been a spectacular one for him to break his duct in, but not really the one that you'd look for him to break his duct in. We'll have easier games coming up in the next few weeks that I'm sure he'll finally get himself back in the score sheet. Anyway, lads, that's it for this one. And look, before I get all carried away, yes, Tottenham were rubbish on the day. That definitely helped. Chelsea were good, not great for the most part. But the one thing that Tottenham struggled with, and I've said it recently, their only really creative player is Harry Kane, and that doesn't even suit them, because that means their best striker, the best striker in the league, I would say, is having to drop back to try and make things happen for them. And then without having Harry Kane at all in this game, well, look what happened. And it's not just in this one. Look what's happened to them recently against the likes of Brighton and whatnot. But hey, just because Tottenham decided to be bad on the day, that's not Chelsea's problem. They still had to go, kill them off, win the game, take the 3 points. They did all that. We're back up to 6th, well back in this race for a top 4 finish, especially considering the inconsistent form of the other teams in the race. Definitely not over. People had us written off. I was saying, yes, we're 9th, but look at the points tallies. 3-4 games with good results and we are right back in it. It's exactly what's happened and I'm delighted for it. But yeah, if you're as happy as I am, leave a like. Comment below whether you agree, disagree with my rating, subscribe for more footy chats, and hopefully see you all in the next video.